Hey everybody, Rob here. Got another book I'm very excited to showcase here. WildCats Xmen. You got the writer James Robinson. Oh my gosh, I am so unprepared. I'm super unprofessional. Let me find the titles page. Yes, James Robinson. I apologize for my lack of knowledge, but it's mainly because I am excited about the artist. It's Hughes, is the last name, Adam Hughes. That guy is one of the best artists I have ever watched in comic history. There's so many great artists out there that I could say the same thing about how much I love what they do and how they do, but there is something about the way that he draws and the stuff that he does, and it's hard to explain it. It's hard to kind of get into it. Sometimes you just see a guy and you just are blown away by everything that he does. I remember seeing his artwork when I was first exposed to him. I did not like him at all. It was soft and rounded, and all his female characters. He obviously was a big studier of realistic human anatomy, and he would draw all the girls as like very big bodybuilder types with very wide upper body shoulders, very narrow, skinny hips. And he obviously could draw very well, but I just did not like the look. But as he's gone on, he's softened up, he's refined. He doesn't make him quite so, like every female character doesn't have to be this ridiculous bodybuilder type. I don't know why he did that, but he very quickly became one of my favorite artists. And he's known very specifically for his drawing of women. I know I tend to say that a lot about a lot of the artists that I've looked at, but he's kind of one of the absolute top. They refer to him as a good girl artist. He draws characters that look sexy and beautiful without looking trashy and disgusting or drawn for just like over-the-top sexualization, but at the same time making them very, very attractive. And so when this came out, this is obviously it's X-Men, but WildCats is a book from Image Comics by Jim Lee. And Jim Lee, of course, was the artist on, in the 1990, X-Men #1, like a relaunch of a secondary title of X-Men that sold 8-point-something million copies. There's a video of it where I look at it on my channel here. But Image Comics and Marvel, they get together and decide, let's do a WildCats X-Men crossover. Who wouldn't be interested in that? You got Jim Lee, who at the time especially was one of the, if not the premier superhero comic artist penciler of everybody. And he's got his own characters of WildCats, and let's cross those characters over with X-Men, the book that Jim Lee drew to the greatest selling American comic book of all time. They did 4 books. Yes, one Jim Lee drew. This one by Adam Hughes. There's another one that's equally as incredible. I'm definitely going to dig it out and find it by Travis Charest. Man, that book was incredible. And then there was a 4th one. It was kind of the lesser of the one because I can't tell you who drew it, and it was less interesting. It was really good, but less so than these. Anyway, I've looked through this book so many times. This is my original copy, and you probably can't tell, but I've flipped through this thing so many times. It's kind of worn out. Like you can see the back. It's not in great shape. The corner's been kind of bent up. Like I've said before, I don't buy comic books to keep them pristine and perfect and in a glass case, never to be touched. I buy them because I read them, I hold them, I look at them, I flip through them, I experience them, I enjoy them. And this has been one of my favorites for a long time. I haven't flipped through it in quite a while, but I'm not going to get too much into the story because you're not here to listen to me read to you, but I am just going to be gushing all over this Adam Hughes artwork. He's so good. And the thing that I really liked about this book is each one of these, there was 4 of these books, this WildCat X-Men crossover. Each one of these books was set in a different time period. And this one was set in the kind of the classic premier 80s X-Men era, which in a way is kind of the best. There's the 80s version and the 90s version. Now, Jim Lee's book, The X-Men, was the 90s version, and probably the most popular, but in a way, the best version is the 80s version, and that's the version that appears in this book, crossing over with the WildCat characters. And we'll be honest, the WildCat characters are Not nearly as interesting as the X-Men, but like I was saying before, it's the whole gimmick of crossing over the X-Men and the WildCats because they're Jim Lee's characters and crossing them over with the characters that he drew to great success at Marvel. You got this building. It's the Hellfire Club. Laser blast through the air. If you know anything, that's probably Cyclops. And you can tell by the silhouette that Cyclops dragging somebody out of the rubble. And it is. That's Cyclops, and he's carrying this character. This is one of the Wildcat characters. He's a robot, hence his little eyeball hanging out of his face and the missing hand with wires. His name's Spartan. Clearly something had happened. It's kind of like just a little quick setup to show the characters, and then maybe jumping back in time. Adam Hughes, especially these days, I'm going to just verify if I was a good comic reviewer. Okay, he did not do the colors on this. I'm not surprised. He just did the pencils. He had somebody else do the inking and then someone else do the colors. But Adam Hughes these days, he does it all. He does the pencils, the inks, the colors. He can do it all. But in this case, he's just doing the pencil line work, and then someone else comes behind him and does the inking, and then you got a colorist. And the inkers and the colorists on this book did incredible. This is one of my favorite versions of Adam Hughes art. I love the big tree up front and then the building in the background, and it's kind of faded. It feels cold. This is Nightcrawler from the X-Men hanging upside down. He's kind of recording his observations to himself. He's got a little device he's talking to. Great little start to the book. He's still upside down. He's talking to himself. He's just going on and on. I love the shading, the way that Adam Hughes knows how to put shadows on faces, and especially with Nightcrawler because he's got dark blue skin, so there's always heavy shadows. But he senses something behind him, and coming is one of Jim Lee's characters, Warblade. This big dude here, he's basically like a liquid metal guy. He can flex his body, usually just his hands, to be like sharp metal shapes to cut at people. Nightcrawler is no fool. He jumps out of the way. He's saying that Warblade here, he's calling him a Daemonite, which is the alien lizard monsters that the WildCats fought in their first appearances in the comics. So, and they could possess other people. So if you're following the WildCats and you hear him say, don't know what kind of Daemonite you are, you understand that Warblade, who's a hero, would think that he's a bad guy, and that's why he's attacking him. Of course, these characters, they get together. They have to have some reason to fight. Great shot. Warblade chops at the tree where Nightcrawler was at, but the traditional bamf, that's the sound effect when Nightcrawler teleports away. And he can teleport and attack. And he does a really good job. Warblade gets a handle on him. Giant explosion. They're knocked down. And these are guys from the Hellfire Club trying to stop both of our heroes here. Now Warblade jumps into the fray. They're going to fight. Just more fighting going on. I love this shot of Nightcrawler. He could be a tricky character to do. I don't know how some people get it. There's another great one where you got Nightcrawler up front, but you got this line work and the coloring, like a color silhouette. The moon behind him. That looks great. Warblade's talking like he understands that he made a mistake, and he just disappears. This is a great scene down here where Nightcrawler looks up to the sky and then looks back in front of him. Warblade's gone. This is another great long figure. This is funny. He's rain upon snow, only in England. So then it goes back to two panels on the same page. These are the WildCats discussing the situation. This is the X-Men discussing the situation. They're all kind of encountering things that are going to lead them to the obviously the same end goal. Great art, great backgrounds. Adam Hughes can do it all. There's literally nothing he can't draw. Everyone, like I was saying, he's famous for drawing female figures and women and sexy, sultry female characters. But just remove that, he can draw anything, and he can do it really well. He's not a one-trick pony. He's got all the skills. The characters are talking, just kind of figuring out what their plans are, what they're going to do. They're going to go infiltrate the bad guys. And they get there, and these are the Wildcat characters. This is Spartan and Voodoo. They're in disguise to infiltrate the Hellfire Club. Another just great detailed background with chairs, beds, the doors, the moldings, the curtains, the little things across the fireplace mantle. He's not just drawing hot girls. He's not just doing that. I mean, believe me, they're there. But it's so good. This is one of my favorite pictures. Jean Grey in her Phoenix form when she was a good guy. I love how he renders her body, the darker parts, with the black lines to kind of give the anatomy some definition. But on her gloves and her legs, it's just a open figure. Like there's none of this black line work showing the anatomy. It's just a neat way to do it. And I've only seen him do that. I'm not saying he's the only one who does that, but he's the one I've always paid attention to, that he does that unique thing for the Phoenix character. He draws her really well. I like the sash that she wears, and it's really long, coming around up into her hands. So good. Like this dark shadowed figure of her. It's great, great, great. Now you got Wolverine and Nightcrawler. They're sneaking along. They run into some bad guys. Wolverine's got the claws out. The bad guys, I guess, suddenly turn into lizard monsters. These are the Daemonites. So they attack, they fight. Because it's a comic book, so there has to be fighting, right? And Wolverine, he's always a badass. That's a great picture of Wolverine jumping into it, gonna start chopping people up, because that's what he does. And while they're doing it, you see these Daemonite lizard monsters get stabbed from a very long, elongated kind of arm, hand. It's what it is. It's Warblade, the liquid metal guy. He showed up. He stabbed this one, and then this guy gets stabbed with this long sword staff. This character, Zealot, and that she knows Wolverine because they met in one of the previous books, so they kind of have a history. Great stuff. Here's another great, like these are, I don't know, he makes it look simple, but this big ballroom, big giant table, candles, just is so big, and like it puts you in the setting. You know where you're at. You feel like you're in this environment. This is something I struggle with. This stuff is hard to do, and it's not fun to draw. It's good when you do it because it gets you in the mood and the vibe and the feel of the story you're trying to tell. But that shit is hard to draw, and so if you skimp on it, you're doing yourself a disservice, and I'm saying that to myself to remind myself that I got to do better. If I had to say one thing in this comic he did not draw well, Adam Hughes, this guy is eating a piece of chicken, and that's not a great rendering of a piece of chicken. I don't know how you would do that. I don't think that works very well. That being said, that's one tiny little thing. I love the side view of that face there. This girl here, the way he draws the hair with these black shapes. Another this guy's face and the shadows on it. It's just so good. And so these characters are all at the Hellfire Club, and it's all about like decadence and sexuality. And so they take this main character and give him his own room. And what do they have waiting for him in his own room? A couple of hot girls in the bed waiting for him. He's like, oh my gosh, all right. And then these two characters are getting put into their own room, and they're basically told that they're expected to live the life of the world that they're in here now. Like basically, you two are together, and you got to live this existence. And they're like, oh, we're not together. But Spartan, the robot, which is another interesting, he's a robot, and this girl, Voodoo, she's into him. But she's like, nope, let's play the role. And here's Adam Hughes doing what he does best. What a great drawing. Again, it's kind of the same thing with that Phoenix drawing where the dark leather is used to have rendering to show the anatomy, the muscles, the shadows, but all the skin is just open with not really any rendering. This character has some big tattoos on her hips, but that's a great drawing, and I love the face and the hair. And this is just a wild perspective with her saying, let's go, buddy, let's go. And he's a robot, but apparently he can think like a normal man because he's reacting the way anybody would if you're a man. This is a great shot. It's supposed to be a dark scene, but he has this guy in silhouette, but he's got a flashlight in the way that he's just showing just the light illuminated in his silhouette. That's great. And then this panel here where this is the guy with the flashlight and the way he's got this round light flashing, shining its light down in here on this lizard that's been shredded up with the shadow behind it. That is so good. The shading and the lighting on this guy's face. Just the silhouette of this guy walking away with this cloak and the folds. I don't know. Maybe to someone else looking at this, it looks simple. It's not exciting to you. But to me, this is just first-rate God level drawing. If I could draw like this, I would be the happiest guy ever. These bad guys bust in on Spartan and Voodoo, who were about to get it on the previous page, and clearly they were. They get zapped, and this is an interesting effect. He draws like a silhouette of their bodies, but then like an X-ray kind of thing where they're skeletons getting zapped. That's an interesting way to like show that they're being naughty, but not show anything. Almost. Big android guy. He's big, he's strong, he's tough. Even the male anatomy. Like I said, he can draw it all. This is great anatomy. It's like, it's fairly realistic in comic book terms, but not so realistic that it's boring. Great stuff. I like this eye. Just this long panel and just this eye by itself. So good. And, well, we got a pentagram. I guess we're going to summon someone or something from hell. Always a good time, right? Just more getting the story, more great drawing. I'm trying not to just repeat myself, but that's all I'm going to do. Adam Hughes is amazing. He's so good. He's so great. This was a great shot. I wouldn't be surprised if you found reference for this. The expression and the shadows on that face. I bet he maybe even took a picture of somebody and used it as a base reference to compose that image. That looks great. They're calling something from hell. Oh, great, yeah. Giant lizard creature. I've never thought of this, but it's very like Mike Mignola Hellboy monster coming out of the pit of hell, which would make sense because Adam Hughes has actually very recently drawn 2 books of Hellboy for Mike Mignola, and they look great. I'm sure I'll be putting a spotlight on those. Great drawing. You know, of course, it's Adam Hughes, and his bread and butter is drawing the hot girl, so he's going to be sure to throw in a couple of those as we go. That's great. I always like this shot of Spartan shooting the lasers out of his hand, kind of these pulsed, boom, hitting the creature. And then there's a money shot. Big double splash page of all the X-Men, all the WildCats. Like I was saying in some of my other videos, especially with those Liefeld ones, when you got a double splash page, you do your best work. And man, he really nailed it. I love it. The Wildcat characters are significantly less interesting. I think I mentioned that. It's the great thing is seeing Adam Hughes draw the classic Marvel characters. He draws the best Phoenix ever. Wolverine, Colossus, Storm. He's just so good. The Wildcats look great, but it's hard to kind of beat that. You got Storm in her classic 80s era costume. It looks really good. Just the teams fighting. They're fighting the monsters. The Cyclops blasting at the ground here. It got the big old sound effect. I don't know if that was necessary, but it is there. That's fine. This is great. Nightcrawler is saving the character Voodoo here, and they kiss, and I love. It's such a simple thing, but this eye, it's hard to draw. Just even a simple thing like that, an eye, and then it's funny because when Nightcrawler teleports away, it's like brimstone and charcoal, and it's kind of gross. So he kisses her and then takes off, and I love that expression on her face. She's like, ah, it's gross. He does great expressions. And once again, Adam Hughes doing Jean Grey Phoenix. That is so good. I just love it. Especially if you know the way the character is portrayed with her powers. There's always like fire emanating off her, specifically from her hair, and that's what he's got going on there. And that same thing of the dark parts of her costume are rendered with these shadows to give it anatomy and form, but then the gloves and the boots and the sash around her are just left open, and I love how he blends them together. The sash really long. It becomes a really neat design element. So great. And with her great Phoenix powers, she kills the monster. Everyone's beat. All the bad guys are beat. You find out on the previous page how bad guys saying, yeah, well, I rigged the place to explode or something to that effect. Boom. That page probably didn't take too long to draw. Some blown up rubble and boom, explosion. And this kind of takes us back to the beginning of the book where Cyclops is carrying out Spartan and like what's going on. And then out of the rubble, the Phoenix force just erupts out of it. He does a great fiery Phoenix that looks really good. And everyone was saved.
Power off.
Oh my gosh. One of these days I'm going to remember to turn that thing off before it just clicks off in the middle of the video, because that's number 3. Anyway, they're saying how the Phoenix, Jean Grey, was able to, with the help of the Wildcat character Void, who I haven't really mentioned, but she's kind of like the otherworldly, powerful character. Them combined were able to protect the X-Men, and they win. This page, just kind of going over everything that just happened, talking to each other. Another great shot of Jean Grey. Though this does kind of harken back to what I was saying about Adam Hughes, how he would draw these female characters. I mean, she's got very broad shoulders, a very wide upper back, and then kind of very slender. It's very like women bodybuilder, and that's not a bad thing, but he likes his girls very muscular, and this is kind of a throwback to the way he would draw things often. I like muscular girl. I don't know if I like bodybuilder level, but who cares? My opinion doesn't matter. And I always thought that this image of Storm, it's just a great drawing. Like everything about it looks great, and that classic costume. I know it's kind of ridiculous, the outfit itself, like this tiny little thing barely covering her. But from a design standpoint, this cloak that kind of clasps over her shoulders and then swoops down and behind her, it's a cape, but done differently than you see so many capes done. It's so great. And then I like the boots with the little open holes at the upper thigh. It's just great. Everything that he draws is great. And this is from 1997, so this is quite a while ago. I mean, I was maybe 20 years old, out of high school for 2 years when this came out. So this is an older work. And he's still drawn to this day, and he's still amazing. There's several Adam Hughes things that I'm going to be showing here, but this is one that I had sitting out, and I was like, you know what, we're talking about this one. So I guess that's all I've got. I hope you found it enjoyable. I love this book. I know I've said it a lot. I wish Adam Hughes could draw more books. He's very open with the fact that he's not very fast. He's a slow artist, so if he's going to do a book, and he does on occasion, he'll do a book here and there. He's mainly a cover artist. People hire him to do covers for their books because he draws the best covers, the best figures, his composition, his everything about him. It's really eye-catching, so they want his work on covers. And cover work is a good paying gig. But I like to see, again, I don't like to see artists do cover work. I like to see them draw a book and tell a story, and he does. He's done a couple of things over the years. I just wish he could do more. So anyway, I guess that's all I've got. Let me know if you've seen this book, if you like Adam Hughes. What do you like about him? Have you read the others? I'll get some of the others out. We'll be looking at those here eventually. So I guess that's everything I've got for now. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate it so much. I've said it before, but these are fun for me to do. It's a fun new little outlet. It's just a small little channel. I've got like, 27 subscribers in a week. And I'm giddy. That's nothing, and it's just fun to have a couple people looking at the stuff and getting a little bit of feedback. It's fun for me. I hope it's fun for you. So that's all I've got. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.